Today we're going to look at this budget trolley jack from Halfords and see whether it's cheap and useful or just a piece of junk. Let's start by taking a quick look at the box. It's a low profile hydraulic jack rated for up to 2 tons with a lifting range between 9cm to 36cm. The wheelbase is 44.8cm, which is actually quite short, so it doesn't take up much room. It's suitable for lifting cars, well, obviously. It has a 360 degrees rotating handle and, as mentioned, it's low profile for easy access. I didn't actually measure the clearance on my car, but my previous jack was too tall and wouldn't fit underneath the BMW. Fingers crossed, this one will. Warning, very heavy product. It's quite heavy, but I don't think you need 2 people to lift it, unless you're pathetic. In that case, do get some help for your patheticness. Time for the inaugural unboxing section. Well, there isn't actually much to see. You get a flimsy manual, a removable handle, and the trolley jack itself. First impression of the jack? It's quite tacky and flimsy looking, but I didn't have higher hopes for it in the first place anyway. It is quite heavy, which is weird for something so small, but I'm glad it has a small footprint because I don't want it to take up too much garage space. The removable handle also helps keep the unit small. There are instructions printed on the jack itself, which is pretty cool, so you don't have to keep the manual with you. I didn't read any of it, of course, because who needs to read a manual for a jack? There is a tiny release valve beneath the swivel handle section. At first, I thought you need to use pliers or some other tools to tighten and loosen the valve, as it's impossible to do it by hand securely, which I thought it was a bad design since there were no tools included, but eventually I decided to give in and read the manual, which turns out you can use the removable handlebar to tighten this valve. So lesson learned here, do read the instructions if you're an idiot like me. Here you can see that the handlebar can be rotated in multiple directions, but I'm not entirely convinced that you can use it properly when it is rotated 360 degrees. In fact, I found it difficult to raise the jack when the handlebar is turned beyond 90 degrees either side, but that scenario is never likely to happen since you wouldn't be pumping the handle underneath the car anyway. So the valve was securely locked using the handlebar and I started to pump away as a first trial. And goodness gracious me, was it slow at raising the lift. It takes what felt like eternity to raise the jack, but in reality it took a minute or 2 to raise it. I think professional expensive jacks can lift the car in 3 to 5 pumps or so, but since I'm not a professional racing on a circuit and this was a dirt cheap jack, I thought I can forgive its lackluster performance. Also, the handlebar is quite short, so you do have to put quite a bit of effort into pumping the jack. The handle has some rubber grip on it, but it's very hard, so it's quite painful for your palm after a while. I don't know, maybe I'm just weak, or I recommend you wear some gloves, or I might put some foam on it myself in the future to soften it a bit.
Quick tip.
You might want to get a hockey puck, or is it pronounced pug, like P-U-G? Anyway, I bought this one from Amazon for £3.44 including delivery. It helps prevent damaging your jack points on your car since it's metal against plastic. Unlike the professional jack with its large rubber base, these cheap jacks usually have these horrible small metal round platforms that ruins the car jack points. So using this cheap puck, you can prevent damage to your pride and joy. And if you have a bit more time, you can turn it into something like this, which fits perfectly into your BMW jack points. But truth to be told, I cheated and I didn't make this one. I bought it from eBay for like £5. As the rubber is quite hard, it will probably take around 2.3 million years to cut through it without a Dremel or some other power tools, so I cheated. But even without the shaped puck, the bog standard one will prevent damage to your car. Luckily, you can remove the horrible metal platform on the jack, which gives you extra clearance and more stable platform for your puck to sit on. So let's move on to the actual car itself. I used the shaped puck with the metal platform as I thought the ridges on the side will help to grip onto the flat puck surface, but I later found out that it works just as well without the jack's metal platform, but either way it works. This is the part where the pain begins. I started pumping the jack and as mentioned before, this jack is slow. I kept pumping, 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 pumping. It took a total of around 5 minutes of hardcore pumping actions to get the wheels off the ground. Is that normal? I don't think so, but again I will forgive its shitty performance since it was so cheap. And if you don't believe me, this is a uncut sped up footage of the original pumping action. It takes forever. But as you can see, we finally managed to get the car off the ground. Here you can see that the metal platform on the jack kinda squashes the puck, but I'm glad the puck is taking the beating and not the car's jack point. So yeah, I recommend using the puck without the metal platform. Now the car is off the ground, we can do some bumper work, change some wheels, or check the car for damage in my case. I scraped a sleeping policeman the other day and clipped something else. The joy of lowering. To be fair, this clip was done before I lowered it. Once you're done whatever you wanted to do, just use the handle to release the valve and lower the car gently. Time for a conclusion. What do I think of this Halfords 2-ton hydraulic trolley jack with its low profile design? Put simply, it works and it's cheap. Does it lift the car? Yes. Is it cheaply made? Certainly looks like it. It does what it's supposed to do, so I can't really fault it. I can't tell at this point if the budget nature it will fall apart very soon or just keep on working. But since it's so cheap, I won't cry over it if it does break. But here's the thing, because it's so cheap, I'll never ever trust it for some serious car work. I will never go underneath the car using this jack or do any major mechanical work while it's on it. I simply can't trust it. In my mind, this is just a slightly upgrade to a scissor jack used occasionally for changing or cleaning my wheels, and that's about it. Or if it needs to be, use it to raise the car and put it on some proper jack stands. So how cheap is this jack, I hear you ask? Well, it's advertised in store for £40, which is pretty damn cheap. But wait, it gets better. If you reserve the item online and pick it up in store, it's only £25. £25! Bargain or what? I'm starting to sound like an ad, but I like a bargain, so there you go. I really wanted a nice expensive jack, but expensive ones are, well, expensive. Over £100 upwards, all the way to infinity and beyond, which is way too much for my usage. All I wanted was to take the wheels off for some periodic cleaning every now and then. I do thoroughly recommend this jack since it simply works and it's cheap. Great tool to have for occasional work as a spare jack or one that you can use to lift suspension parts or just hold your exhaust in place while you're fitting it, for example. But beware, this jack is very slow, the handle is quite short and the grip is painful to say the least, and it doesn't come with a storage box or a proper handle to lift the jack up off the ground. But we can forgive its flaw because it's so cheap.